multiply them, and we'll start by multiplying a monomial. And this is probably review for most of you, but you multiply the coefficients, so 7 times 4, and then you multiply the like variables. And those are both base y, and remember that when you multiply, you add exponents. So it's y to the 5th. Now to add them, they have to be the same, and they stay the same in your answer. But to multiply, remember that you add exponents. What if I give you a monomial times a binomial? Now you have to use that D word. You have to distribute. So we're going to take 4x times 3x and 4x times negative 2. So 4 times 3 is 12, and x times x, remember that you add the exponents, so I have x squared. And then don't lose your negative here, we get minus 8x when we multiply 4x times negative 2. Alright, what if I multiply a negative monomial by a trinomial? Sometimes this can cause us to make little mistakes. We want to make sure we distribute that negative all the way through, so every sign will change. So I have negative 2 times 5 is negative 10, and y to the 3rd times y squared is y to the 5th, adding those exponents. Now I have negative 2 times negative 2, so I get positive 4. And y cubed times y is y to the 4th. And then again, negative 2 times 6, negative 12. And there's no other y's, so just carry your y to the 3rd. Now, this is where it gets fun. What if I give you a binomial times another binomial? Now, the idea here is that you need to take x times both of those and negative 2 times both of those. And so some of you have probably heard the word for first, outside, inside, last. And so that is a method that lots of people like because it keeps like terms together, and you'll see what I mean in a second. And it makes sure that we multiply x times both of those and negative 2 times both of those. So I'm going to FOIL this. So I'm going to go first times the first. So that's this one times this one. First times the first. And so x squared. Then I'm going to go out x. Next I'm going to do inside times the inside. So I have negative 2 times 3, which is negative 6x. And then last of all, we'll go last times the last. So those two. Now I get negative 2. Now what's kind of convenient about foiling is that it keeps like terms, see those two like terms, together. So then I can easily combine them. I know that they are both x, and they will stay x, and I have plus 1 and negative 6, so I get negative 5x. And that's your final answer when you multiply, when you FOIL those. So yeah, and by the way, your directions just say multiply. What if I give you a binomial times a trinomial? You just have to make sure you times 7x times all three of them and negative 2 times all three of them. So let's do that carefully. So 7x times 2x squared is 14x to the 3rd. 7x times negative 7 is negative 7x. X times x is our x squared. Lastly, we've got that 7x times the 1, so it just stays 7x. Now I have to repeat it with negative 2. So negative 2 times positive 2 is negative 4x squared. Negative 2 times negative x is positive 2x. And negative 2 times positive 1 is negative 2. Then you combine like terms, and this way there's no helpful, they're not by each other, but look, there's an x squared and there's an x squared. So I need to combine them, so I just add the coefficients, so I get negative 11x squared. And remember that when you're adding or subtracting, they have to be the same, and they stay the same in your answer. Alright, I'm adding 7x to 2x, subtract 2. And standard form is in descending order, so I'm going highest power to lowest power. And that is my solution. Let's just FOIL one more. How about this one? Let's FOIL 4x minus 3 times x minus 6. So using our FOIL method, we're going to go first times the first squared. Then my outside times my outside. So 4x times negative 6. So I have negative 24x. Then my inside times my inside. Negative 3x. And last of all, last times the last. Negative times the negative becomes positive 18. And look, conveniently like terms are right by each other, so don't forget to simplify. Now, the book gives you to memorize these if it's helpful. Sometimes you can go backwards, which we'll have to do in this chapter later. But for now, it might just be easier to actually FOIL. But let me give you these two patterns just in case they're helpful. If you're a good memorizer, they might be handy to have in your mind. But if you are squaring a plus, it looks like this. If you're squaring a subtract binomial, it looks like this. It's the very same, except the middle term is negative. And again, just become familiar with those. You don't need to memorize them, but they will help you later on. When you're given this, you'll recognize that it goes back. It factors to this. Squared. Now, you can use the pattern, or you can just FOIL it. So let's do both ways. Let's suppose I use the pattern. Here's my pattern. It says that I just take the first one and square it. So I would have x squared. So I'm going to have 2 times x times 3. So that would be 6x, right? And square it. So plus 9. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to think of this x plus 3 squared as the whole thing times itself, right? That's what x plus 3 squared is. And oftentimes I do see people just square the x and square the 3. And that's illegal. If you've got a plus sign in there, you have to think of it as a binomial times a binomial. So you have to FOIL. So first times the first, inside times the inside, last times the last. And there's are those like terms to combine right there in the middle. And, oops, I added an imaginary x. That's not there. Plus 9. 3 times 3 is just 9. Sorry about that. So you can see that you get the same answer either way, with the formula or by FOILing. So you can do that whichever way you like it. Now, what if they give you x plus 4 times x minus 4? Let's look what happens then. So this can't be written, but we know we just FOIL it. So let's FOIL it. First times the first, outside times the outside, inside times the inside, and last times the last. Then, combining like terms, what happens to your outside and inside? Right there. One's negative are gone. So this is really helpful. Again, in a couple sections when we're factoring, when you see a perfect square, subtract or plus, actually it will always be subtract, another perfect square, you know that it came from this. And that for perfect squares with subtract signs in between. And you'll know to go back to that. For now, just FOIL. That's all you'll have to do. Let's do one last one. They give you a function notation, minus 6x plus 1. Find, they want f of b minus 1. So we're putting a whole binomial now in wherever we see x. So I've got it right there. I'm going to go ahead and write it right here, b minus 1 squared minus 6 times b minus 1. I'll put a line so that doesn't throw us up. Plus 1. Now, right here you have to FOIL. So once again, you can just write it out twice, b minus 1 times b minus 1, and you can FOIL first, outside, or the other way to do it is to use your formulas right here in the middle, and these are good to kind of try to stick into memory. But you can see that when you have something subtract, you have the first one squared minus 2 times the first and second plus the second one squared. And that's what we have. So I'll just copy that down right here. I've got b squared minus 2b plus 1. Then carefully distribute negative 6. And you have to go distribute the negative all the way through the parenthesis so it becomes plus. That's a big point of mistakes. Plus 6. Alright, then just combine like terms. There's no other b squared, so that stays b squared. I can add negative 2b and negative 6b, so I get negative 8b. And then I have 1 plus 6 plus 1, so plus 8. And that's your final answer. So you just found f of b minus 1. F of b minus 1 is this whole expression right there. Alright, commonly on finals, it seems like I've seen ones like this. And of course they're all very important, but make sure when you see problems like this, a binomial times a trinomial, say, give me another one. Get really comfortable with those. Thanks, you guys. Work hard.